We're catching up on the game formerly known as Project Eternity, currently known as Pillars of Eternity, with Obsidian here at Gamescom. And I guess this is pretty significant. You're letting the public have their hands-on go at the game. What's that experience been like here at Gamescom?
It's been pretty interesting because this is the first time we've shown it to the public. It's our backer beta. So this is the same build that's going to be going out to backers on Monday. So it's interesting to see how people react to the game. It's a very old-fashioned type of game. So obviously there's always concerns that gamers in 2014 might not be familiar with the Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, Planescape Torment games. So seeing them interact with it is pretty interesting, sometimes frustrating. Seeing the things that they do or bugs that we've sort of unintentionally left in, but it's been a really good process so far.
I guess it's kind of booth where you want to have your your age gates very high, like 30 perhaps or something.
Yeah, it is a very difficult game. We recommend that people start on easy, and it's something that we're going to figure out during the backer beta, like how difficult the game should be and what our players kind of expect, and how, if they find the challenge factor to be too hard, that we're going to probably dial it back a little bit. But I think it's tuned pretty well. If we, we'll figure out like how people like it, and we'll see how that goes.
So speaking of that backer beta, what kind of content is in there, and what kind of answers are you looking for in the beta? Because it's not just to sort of keep people happy that they have something to play, right?
Yeah, it's so the backer beta is part of our game toward the middle of the game, maybe a little earlier than the middle. And it's side content. We wanted to make sure there were no story spoilers. Even the companions that are in the backer beta are not actual companions from the game. They're just sort of placeholders for people to use. We really want to get feedback on the mechanics, how the character classes feel, how combat feels, movement, loot gathering, crafting, all the core fundamental gameplay mechanics, because we still have time to change those, to tune them, and we want to make sure they feel good before they go out.
I mean, just looking at the game, I got a brief glimpse the other day. There's so many systems. It just makes me happy inside to see all the systems that correlate with each other, all the depth that there's so much to dig into. And I guess that's the kind of thing that people want from this kind of game. But sort of, is there an effort also to make it accessible to those who perhaps haven't played the greats of the 90s?
Yeah, there really is. When we were making this game, it was very important to me that we make a rule system that had a lot of tactical depth, a lot of strategic depth in how you build your characters, but that the rules were consistent and they were presented to the player in a way that was easy to learn. So a lot of the past rule systems we've worked with have had a lot of exceptions in the rules, inconsistent mechanics, so you have to learn all these like little minor things. Makes it a big stumbling block to really getting into the game and starting to master it.
For example, wizards starting with 4 hit points. Like that's just it's kind of stupid.
Or wizards can't wear armor and cast spells at the same time. Or we have, in the old games, we had 2-hit, armor class 0, and saving throw. So different mechanics for different types of attacks, all that sort of stuff. So in Pillars of Eternity, we said, let's just make it very consistent. We have one attack and defense system. It works the same for all sorts of attacks. Once you've learned one system, you understand it for everything. Classes aren't restricted in what equipment they use, but there are reasons why you might want to favor one over another. Speed versus overall protection for armor. And just stuff like that. So it's something that we believe that is deep enough that the experienced gamer is going to find that it has the depth they want to sink into. But if you're a new player, it shouldn't be extremely difficult to get into and really start going with it.
We also have a few helper features. Like we have a combat HUD that kind of shows a little more information. And for hardcore experienced players, they can turn all that stuff off. We have an expert mode feature, and they can just toggle that, and it will disable all the kind of the new helper features that we're adding into the game.
Another thing that struck me looking at the game, because of course you have your your rosy memories of those old games. They don't look quite as good today, but a lot of games are sort of giving rebirths, and you sort of bring out the beauty in a different way because of the new technology. Can you tell us a little bit about what's gone into the art, because it's really a beautiful game?
Thank you. So we went back and looked at the old games to look at the style, the camera angles that we were using, like how much of pitch we needed to have. Our camera's a little bit lower than the older games, gives us more sort of detail in the walls of buildings and houses and things like that. And
like how large the characters appear on screen, like what scale we're using. Yeah. We also paid a lot of attention how the older games built interior environments, just to get that look and feel of Baldur's Gate. We really paid close attention to that. And like our backgrounds are pre-rendered, and they can also be hand-painted, and they're very organic looking, very beautiful, and very handcrafted. We're not using a tiled kind of system, so like it gives us a lot of freedom to kind of customize each area that you explore and make it really, really beautiful.
We also developed a lot of new rendering technology for this. We wanted to make sure that we were able to do new and dynamic things. The old games were very static. The maps were very, very static. We wanted to be able to use 3D lighting effects within our 2D environments. So Adam and the programmers worked together to come up with a rendering solution that allowed us to do that. So when you throw a fireball, it'll actually light up the world as though it's 3D, even though it's a 2D image. So we put a lot of time and effort into making it look and feel like the old games, but it elevates the appearance of it so it looks more dynamic and more interesting for 2014.
So if we take like a little bit of a grander perspective, what does this project mean for Obsidian as a whole? Because you've sort of been that studio that had picked up someone else's franchise, made a sequel to it, made a great work of it, but this, if you've had done original IP in the past, but this feels like it's something a little bit different to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we did obviously work on an original IP with Alpha Protocol, but it wasn't our IP. I mean, we worked on it, but now it's Sega's. With Pillars of Eternity, it's our IP, so it's ours to develop. We can take it in whatever direction we want to, and we treat that very seriously because an intellectual property is what every independent developer wants to have. It means that they have the ability to take that property in any direction. We can keep making games in this type. If we want to make a different type of game, maybe on a tablet or something like that, or a completely different type of game, different genre, using the same setting, we can do that if we want to. So we're taking it very seriously. We want the debut of this intellectual property to really be well received by our backers and by the fans at large. So.
And I just want to say that this is only possible because of our backers. So like the 77,000 people that backed the project, like this wouldn't be possible. So like we're so thankful for them for giving us this opportunity.
That relationship has also got to be very special because it's rare that a game like this would be sort of developed under such scrutiny, if you will, as this.
Yeah, I used to work at Black Isle Studios, and so I was on the forums a lot back at Black Isle, and so I've been interacting with a lot of the people that are on our forums now, back then 15 years ago. But you're right, this sort of a project, normally we wouldn't start talking about it until maybe about now, maybe a little bit before now. Whereas with a Kickstarter project, you're talking about it before it even really starts. So it is a different experience because the backers and the players are involved from the inception. So even when you're still in the conceptual phase, which is nice because often when we work on a game, we're way into development before we start getting feedback, and sometimes you go like, oh, well, geez, people are really pissed about this. I had no idea. We put like 3 months of effort into it. What are we going to do now? Whereas on this, we've made course corrections over the course of the project, but they've been minor because they've been caught early. So we hear player feedback, we go, oh, they don't like this. Like we had a durability system in for equipment. Some players liked it, most of them really did not like it. We're like, okay, we just put a little bit of time into it. We'll scrap it, no big deal.
All right, so I got 3 letters for you, DLC. What can you tell us about your future plans post-launch?
Well, we have at least one expansion that's already been funded by the backers. So we've had our internal brainstorming meetings about that. Just broad ideas. Now that we're getting into the backer beta, we're going to be thinking about that more often because we got to start working on it in advance of the product launching. After that, we'll have to see how the product is received, how the expansion is received. We know that our backers like the more full-sized expansions rather than kind of bite-sized DLCs. So something more on par with Tales of the Sword Coast, Heart of Winter, maybe a little bigger than Heart of Winter, more like Trials of the Lure Master. So the old Infinity Engine games sort of set the standard for that size of expansion pack, more of an expansion pack than a DLC. So that's what we're going to be focusing on, having a new little area with its own plot lines and cool areas to explore that integrate into the main game.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to go back into my blackout mode for Pillars of Eternity until it's finished and it's out and I can play it. So thank you so much for your time.